Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to all of you who are joining us tonight for the fourth Fireside Chat for Trey Season 3. My name is LaJoy Royston, and I'm the Program Director for Trey Athletes. Thank you for joining us tonight. This Fireside Chat will be a conversation with Big 12 Commissioner Bowlsby and Community Relations Manager for Mavs Gaming, Trey Thompson, moderated by my colleague, Brian Reynolds, on business and sports, followed by a Q&A session. Following this conversation, we will have a live Q&A, so we urge you to submit questions at any time through the conversation using the Q&A function. If you submit a question, you will have the opportunity to appear on video and ask your question live if you would like to. For all of our Season 3 participants, don't forget your team can win a pizza party by engaging with Trey on social media and tagging us at Trey Athletes. We'll drop our tag in the chat. We will be announcing our first winner this Friday, so check us out on Instagram for additional rules. In case you didn't know, tonight's chat is presented by Trey Athletes. We are a Dallas-based youth sports nonprofit, and our mission is to empower athletes to be leaders, role models, and influential voices for our communities. We believe that by providing high school athletes with the opportunity to learn from amazing speakers, we can provide them insight and tips for success. The athletes can gain the skills necessary to succeed on and off the court. I'll be back at the end of the conversation to share a few reminders. I hope you all enjoyed this amazing conversation. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Brian. Take it away, Brian.
Thank you so much, LaJoy, and welcome, everyone. I'm Brian Reynolds, co-founder and co-CEO of Trey Athletes. Tonight, we're talking about the business of sports, both the traditional and the old school, as well as the new school and the progressive, with two incredibly qualified gentlemen, both of whom are former college athletes, Commissioner Bob Bowlsby of the Big 12 Conference and Trey Thompson of Mavs Gaming. First up is our good friend, one of the most respected athletic administrators in the nation and current commissioner of the Big 12 Conference, Bob Bowlsby. A native of Waterloo, Iowa, Commissioner Bowlsby earned his bachelor's degree from Minnesota State University Moorhead, as well as his master's degree from the University of Iowa. In college, Commissioner Bowlsby was a four-year letter winner in wrestling and served as captain during his senior year when he won an NSIC conference title. After 7 years working as Northern Iowa's athletic director, 15 years as the University of Iowa's athletic director, and 6 years as Stanford's athletic director, he was named the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference in none other than 2012. Commissioner Bowlsby has previously served as president of the NCAA Division 1A Athletics Directors Association, as well as the chair of the NCAA Division 1 Men's Basketball Committee. He played a key role in the formation of the college football playoff that began in the 2014-15 season, which was the first postseason playoff in the history of college football. Additionally, Commissioner Bowlsby has served on the board of directors of the U.S. Olympic Committee, and he was selected by President George W. Bush to help review Title IX. Bob has been married to his wife, Candace, for over 40 years, and they have 4 children, 7 grandchildren, and 2 grandchildren on the way. Welcome, Commissioner Bowlsby.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Next up is Dallas native, former Texas State champion, and current community relations manager for Mavs Gaming, Trey Thompson. Prior to graduating from Duncanville High School, shout out to the Panthers, Trey and his teammates won the 2012 UIL 5A state championship in the 4x400 meter relays. All y'all do at Duncanville is win state championships, huh? In college, Trey earned a bachelor's degree in business management from Northwood University, Midland, Michigan, where he ran track and participated in multiple student organizations and activities. Since graduating in 2016, Trey has 5 years of professional experience in sports. Trey has held sales and business administrative roles with the Cowboys, at Legends Hospitality, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Dallas Mavericks. After 3 years with the Mavs, Trey currently serves as the community relations manager for Mavs Gaming. Welcome, Trey.
Thank you, Brian. I'm happy to be here.
And by the way, great name.
Right.
For those of you watching and listening at home who are interested in working in sports, tonight's Trey Athlete Season 3 conversation is just for you. To help you jumpstart your career, we're going to hear from both Commissioner Bowlsby and Trey about their career paths, their current jobs, how the sports industry continues to grow and evolve, and tips to think about as high schoolers for starting a career in sports. To kick things off, And this question is for both of you. So let's begin with Trey. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So it's actually kind of ironic. The first sport that I actually fell in love with was basketball. So it was ironic that at that early stage in my life, I actually wanted to play in the NBA. I think that that was a traditional dream for a lot of us that grew up in the inner city. Basketball was the way. But fast forward, when I got to high school, my father worked overseas in Iraq as a military contractor. So he got to travel around a lot. So that was where my passion for traveling and learning a little bit more about business kind of grew on me. And so that was kind of like where I led my path when I got to college.
I absolutely love that. And hats off to your dad for his incredible service. Commissioner Bowlsby, swinging it back to you. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
Well, I don't know. I can't honestly say that I aspired to be a commissioner. I always loved sports. And of course, like all little guys and girls growing up, I figured that I was going to play in the NFL and probably Major League Baseball or something else. As I got a little bit older and got interested in more sports, I got started wrestling. And then, of course, at that point, you wanted to be an Olympic champion. And so, I continued to pursue that for a while and was able to string it out through college for a while. But you pretty quickly find out that there are only a few people that get to do what you dreamt about when you were a kid. And so, I had a wonderful experience in sports. I had great mentors. It afforded me a good education. But I can tell you, despite all the criticism that I get from time to time, I'm a much better commissioner than I ever was a wrestler or a football player or a baseball player. So I'm glad to be where I'm at. But I didn't honestly start out wanting to be doing what I'm doing today. But I always kind of had a feeling that sports was going to be in my future. And I've been very fortunate. I've had good opportunities. And it's the harder you work, the more opportunities you get. And so sports is an area where you can exert yourself and get rewarded for it.
So it seems like you're kind of reading my mind right now as it relates to where we're going from here. Talk to us, Commissioner Bowlsby, about some of those opportunities. And if you could kind of walk us through your career path to date, and maybe in simple terms, kind of describe your current job responsibilities as a commissioner.
Well, I spent most of my career on campus, and I was fortunate. I was a Division I athletic director when I was 31 years old. So it was mostly a job that nobody wanted. There were several people on the staff that had aspired to the job at Northern Iowa, and I became the interim athletic director for about 6 months. And one day the president called me and said, this seems to be going okay. Would you like to be considered to have the job full time? And they wanted me to continue to do the job that I was doing, which was director of facilities, and be the athletic director for about $25,000 less than the previous athletic director was making. And I couldn't have been more excited. The only thing that I worried about was every morning when I got to my office, I was sure that the president was going to call and tell me that this wasn't working out and that I was going to be replaced. And I can tell you that fear of failure is a pretty good motivation. And we had a good run. Northern Iowa was a fledgling Division I program, a mid-major. While I was there, we joined the Missouri Valley Conference, which was a big jump for us. And then one thing led to another, and I had a senior administrator at the University of Iowa come to me and say, Bump Elliott, the longtime athletic director at Iowa, was going to retire, and that they thought I would be a good candidate. And I half thought they were kidding, because I didn't think people made jumps from Northern Iowa to the Big Ten. And so all of a sudden there I was. And, from that time on, I've never sought a job. I haven't, I don't really even have a resume. And it's the entry level positions that you seek. And I'm sure Trey knows this well. It's hard to get started sometime, even if you had a great competitive career and you've been in athletics all your life. You need to get experience, and you need to get the education, and you still need to be a little bit lucky, because there's a lot of these brand new sports management programs out there, and there's lots of graduates, and they're seeking a limited number of opportunities. And so you want to get a good education, but you also want to get a lot of good experience. And then, once you're in it a while, I've had people come and knock on my door and say, we think you'd be a good fit. I've been lucky in that way. Trey will have that same experience. He's at that point in his career. I have to be honest with you. I have shoes older than Trey. So, he's at the stage of his career that I would love to be in, because everything is new and different, and you get a chance to go out and kind of eat what you kill. And that's a great thing to be. It's a lot like athletics. It's you get out of it what you put in it.
Well, Trey, talk to us about all the things that you sort of develop as it relates to that, eat what you kill model that Bob so aptly described. But talk to us a little bit about your career progression and kind of how you would describe your day-to-day responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I'll go back to my senior year of college. So I'd had an amazing indoor season. But unfortunately, I started developing plantar fasciitis as I started going through the outdoor year, which kind of forced me to hang up my spikes. So I was kind of left with the wondering question, what's next? What do I do next? And that was where I had a mentor and a professor, Dr. Preston James. I was privileged to have a great relationship with him where I said, hey, I'm moving back to Texas. What's next? I don't know, but if you have any openings, if you know anybody in the sports business, let me know. At that time, my major was business management, but I'm asking for any opportunities that's out there. I just wanted one shot. So long story short, I get connected with Legends Hospitality at AT&T Stadium. And that's where I got the internship to be a special events. So to paint that picture, taking an athlete and putting him into a world where you have to learn about interior designs, you have to learn about pipe and drape, you have to learn about floor spacing, you have to learn all the specs of pretty much showing somebody a vision before they even step foot in the door. So I took advantage of that internship. It was a sales role. So I said, hey, teach me how to get on the phones, teach me how to call somebody, how to build a relationship, how to network. And so long story short, I had a great internship. They put me on the phones. I'm bringing in business. I'm letting people come in. So they're like, okay, who's this kid? Okay, I kind of like what he has going on. But I was faced with a harsh reality. Just when you get in this business, it just as quickly as you get something, something goes. Internships don't last forever. So it was, okay, what's the next steps? So the next step for me was I did a video resume, which fortunately went viral, which landed me almost 30 interviews with a handful of teams from every pro sports platform you could think of. So from that stage, at that time, I wasn't really interested in the hustle and bustle of like cold calling, picking up the phone. Hey, you want to buy tickets? You want to buy tickets? That wasn't where my passion was, because I've spent the last 5 months learning how to sell event spaces. So I wanted to do something that was more in alignment with catering to an experience rather than doing a unit metric sale. So that was where I was fortunate enough to be connected with the San Francisco 49ers, where I took a job as the sales consultant of stadium experiences. There was when I kind of got my first taste of Silicon Valley. So I'm in front of all these major tech powerhouses, a very brand new stadium. And this was also during the first year that Colin Kaepernick took a knee. So that was my first stint in pro sports, my first full-time gig. Kaepernick's taking a knee, and we've probably lost almost every game except for 2 throughout that entire season. But we still got to get on the phones. You still got to sell the experience. But luckily for me, my job wasn't catered towards the team's wins and losses. My job was catered towards, hey, if you want your employees to be more motivated to come to work, treat them to a unique experience here with us. And so that was kind of the route that I used to always have to spin it. So that way they would be like, oh, you know what? I know the team is not playing that good, but I like his enthusiasm. We'll do it. So that ended up leading me to actually come back to Texas, where I started working with the Legends Hospitality again, and they had just opened up a brand new restaurant called the Stadium Club. And so I was fortunate enough to come in and start selling spaces. And it was right next to the pro shop at AT&T Stadium. So it was always a nice little hot spot to get a good bite to eat. And so I did that. And, you know, things kind of started transitioning within the organization. So again, another step of adversity. I'm like, okay, I'm developing this experience, but there's nothing there. So I'm kind of spinning my wheels a little bit. And that was when the opportunity to join the Dallas Mavericks came about. So originally I went for the high up position. I said, hey, you know what? I've worked for 2 NFL organizations. This is the next step for me. But unfortunately, I had to take a different route. And I started taking a role as the account executive of group sales, where I said, you know what? Hey, it's still full menu. And me being a competitor, I said, okay, we're going to do whatever we got to do. So I was fortunate to really come in at the right time. The NBA 2K League season had just started. It was in its first year. So I'm selling tickets, but I'm still a gamer in my personal life. So I'm like, kind of keeping my ears open, seeing what's going on over there. And so fortunately, I had some success in the ticket sales game and I generated some revenue, and I was able to kind of build up enough rapport internally to say, hey, I want to jump in this project. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what I can do, but whatever I can do, I want in. So 7 months in, I stepped in as the sales manager of Mavs Gaming. So at that time, I treated it like a startup. Everybody's hands in, everybody's doing their parts. And so, everybody's learning esports. Everybody's trying to understand this new trend. So I was fortunate enough to come in with us when it was in its infancy and be behind a great owner like Mark Cuban, who understands the forward progressive mindset. So it was a match made in heaven for me, because I went to school for business management. Now I'm in a position where I can kind of learn and get my hands in everything from sales to marketing to social integration. So fast forward, I've been doing that for over the last 2 years. And just back in September, I was able to transition in as the community relations manager. So with Texas being home for me, Dallas-Fort Worth being home, I've been privileged to now be able to create unique events that allow me to get back into my communities and create, events, whether it's high school students that love esports and they love gaming, and they say, hey, I want to find colleges that offer these programs. Well, back in February, I hosted our first college esports seminar where we had 7 of the local universities here in the Metroplex talking to the college students about careers. What's your next step once you get out of here? So we had a unique lineup. And the cool thing about these events is we have guys like Cedric Ceballos who get to come in and host these events. NBA All-Star, works doing Fox Sports Southwest broadcast. And now he's sitting here talking and paneling esports, all starting with a vision. So I'm fortunate to be in the role now where I get to think about the children's future and where they're trying to go.
Wow. Between the two of you, it seems like you've both taken, somewhat indirect routes to get to where you are, but you've always taken advantage of the opportunity, whatever has presented itself, whether it was Commissioner Bowlsby, taking advantage of the opportunity to be the interim athletic director and then grow into that role and then grow into larger shoes at larger universities, or Trey, whether it was you, who basically took advantage of the chance just to get your foot in the door and continue to prove yourself time after time after time in different roles. It's really incredible to see the resilience that both of you guys have put forth as it relates to your career. So hats off to both of you. Commissioner Bowlsby, coming back to you for just a second. I think that, like, if I'm a high schooler sitting at home right now, I might be asking myself, what does the commissioner of a major college sports conference do? How would you describe that to someone who has less familiarity with your job?
Well, first of all, let me say I think Trey kind of got me all jazzed up, because he's out there in that early part of his career, and he's had great success, and he's been able. He understands that it's more perspiration than inspiration. You don't always know where you're going one step in front of the other, and there's a lot of fun to be out there making your own way and taking advantage of every opportunity. I enjoyed hearing Trey's story. It's my position is at the other end of the continuum, but the thing that I still like about it is just what Trey said. I love the interaction with coaches and student athletes. Frankly, I miss my campus days being around young people. I got involved in this business at its heart to try and help 18 to 22-year-olds become, in their adolescence mostly at that point, to become 22-year-old adults and to help them get a good education and have a great experience in athletics. That really is what's kept me in it all these years. And it's still what gets me enthused. And, this last year, as difficult as it was with COVID, one of the things we did early in the summer was we got on Zoom calls with 3 or 4 athletes from each of our football teams. And we just asked them, what is it that you are concerned about? Why do you have concerns? If so, what are they? And their concerns were, we don't want to opt out because we're worried and lose our scholarship. We don't want to play 2 games and find out that we've spent a year of eligibility and the season gets called off. And we don't want to be in a situation where we are uncertain as to whether or not we can play our sport and be healthy at it. And ultimately, we were able to answer all those questions. And it was it's 50 young men that have invested their entire lives in many cases in trying to be the best they can be on the football field. And here, that opportunity is right on the brink of being taken from them. And we just felt like it was an important thing to hear directly from student athletes. And that's what I've been so impressed with Trey is that you're in the end we're all trying to mentor. I still do it with my staff. I spend a lot of time managing and mentoring our staff. The person that coordinates our basketball operation, Jeff Jackson, just was named the commissioner at the Missouri Valley Conference. And, I didn't want to lose him. I can tell you that, but he's going to do a great job. And it's a terrific source of pride for me. And just as it is a terrific source of pride for me when I run into one of our former student athletes from someplace and they, tell me how they have high school age kids and that sort of thing. That for me is really where the rewards are. And much is made of the money, and people think that I have a glamorous job. Frankly, I would rather be on campus. I think I can have more of an impact as a commissioner because I can work with all 10 of our conference members, and we manage scheduling, we manage officiating, we manage television contracts, we manage marketing and promotions, and we run 19 championships in a bunch of different sports, and we stay busy with a lot of things that you would expect would be part of a sports environment. Lately, I've spent a lot of time in Washington working with senators and congressmen around some of the name, image, and likeness legislation. I've spent a lot of time with lawyers around court cases of one sort or another. Those are things that I never really expected to be very much involved in, but I've been involved in them enough now that I probably am in line for an honorary law degree at some point in time. But, it's just, I think that's one of the most fascinating elements of anybody's career. And I never have quite understood how people say, well, 5 years from now, I'm going to be doing this. 10 years from now, I'm going to do that. 20 years from now, I'd like to be in this situation. I think those aspirations are all great. It's good to think about it, but I think you really limit yourself when you, I think I would say, and it sounds as if Trey would say, he never really knew what the next opportunity is going to be. And from being the position he's in now, he's going to meet the biggest business leadership in all of Texas. And you just never know where the opportunities are going to come from. But I do know that the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so, that's a pretty good rule of thumb for me. And I continue to employ it doing what I'm doing now. And I look for other ways to, for fulfillment than the relationships. But it's still the relationships and being around young people. And I suspect that for you and Rebecca, that's a big part of what's appealing to you is to be able to say, I want to share with people that which I've learned. and perhaps help them to avoid some of the mistakes that you made. If you, you know, I'm sure Rebecca made mistakes. Brian, I doubt that you made any mistakes. But you know, I just think that's a wonderful thing, is to try and help young people and then see the light come on. And so ultimately, that's why I've stayed involved all these years.
Well, you're doing a top-notch job, sir, and hats off to you for all of the ways in which you've helped to grow not only all of your member institutions, but the conference itself and really the sports themselves. I think that having an impact on a young person's life is one of the most important things that any of us can really even do. So I think that especially trying to navigate some of those choppy waters immediately post-graduation can obviously be difficult. So Trey, question for you here. You just mentioned something that you didn't tell me about previously, which is the fact that you had a video resume go viral. So let's talk about that for a second. Unpack that. Tell us a little bit more about it. I guess talk to us about not only how you conceptualize this, but the effects of you know, the work that you did as well. I think that it's highly applicable to a lot of the folks listening at home.
Yeah. I'll just say, for starters, I think the mentality, you know, my whole life, I've always had to learn to be flexible. You just have to learn how to adjust and adapt no matter what comes your way. And so, you know, I started off as a 3-sport athlete, and then I had to make a choice. It was like, hey, what's the next step? Are you going to go football, basketball, track and field? What's the next steps for you? So I've had to learn early in my stages, like, okay, you have to make decisions and you have to stick with them. When the reality came that, hey, there's probably not going to be an opening for me here, instead of sitting on my loaf and saying, you know what, man, I really worked hard, I'm kind of bummed out I didn't get it, I said, you know what? I got one of my coworkers, his name is Aaron. We're still close to this day. He's like a brother to me. I mean, it's a blessing for us to still be as tight as we are to this day and continue to grow. But he said, you know what? Let's go to the highest point of AT&T Stadium. Let's go to the Pepsi platform. And because there was a broadcast booth there. And so this broadcast booth this broadcast booth was sitting there. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna sit here almost like I'm a broadcaster, like I'm on television. And so this is when GoPros and things were starting to get popular. So this is where innovation kind of starts to kick in. So he has the GoPro and he's all crouched down like we're hunting for like a deer or something. And so he's kind of moving the GoPro, and I'm like, hi, my name is Trey Thompson. And I'm like, just, this is character, respect, honor. And so I'm going through this whole phase. And then that was kind of like the intro, and then it segued into just me being myself, because I didn't want a job that wasn't going to allow me to just be the person that I am. So I said, you know what? Let's capture footage of me just doing what I do on a day-to-day basis. So he literally followed me around the office, the sales office, everything, with a GoPro camera. And I'm walking in, and I'm the type of person, I'm a morning person. So I get on a lot of people's nerves, because I'm the one, hey, good morning, how you doing? You okay? You need anything? Hey, if I remember something that you told me about your child being sick, hey, is your baby doing good? So I come in with the energy immediately. Hey, what's up? So I'm dapping people up. I'm just being myself. And then, because that allows me, when I get on the phone and I'm trying to have a genuine conversation with somebody, even though the end goal is to get a sale, I still want the conversation to feel genuine. I want you to understand that, hey, when I ask you, how are you doing? This isn't traditional in sales, but this is just who I am. So how are you doing today? The reason that I'm calling is I just said, hey, capture me. So he see me going through my book of business. He randomly put the camera around me when I'm doing cold calls. And so, you know, at one point I was kind of getting a little bugged out about it. I was like, you know what? I'm in my element. I'm in my space. Let's do it. And so that was kind of the motivation behind it. And so I wasn't prepared for what happened next. It was, hey, Sacramento Kings are calling. Hey, you got time to have a call? You know, the first offer that I almost considered was the New York Mets. It was a ticket sales position. I love to travel. I love to see things. So I'm like, New York, absolutely, count me in. I am that man. Say, you ain't got to say nothing but a word. I'm going. But I was, you know, my route was a little different, because I got married my senior year of college. So I now had to think about a wife, you know, and I'm 22 at that time. So, you know, a lot of my decisions, I had to be a little bit more responsible. I had to keep things into consideration, but I feel me staying true to myself and staying true to my family and staying true to my roots kind of allowed me to continue to navigate, but also continue to build an organic network. Because that's the one thing, if you don't learn anything, students, your network is your net worth. And it's not just about the dollars. It's about the meaningful people that you know, the people that you can pick up and call and say, hey, I need a favor. The people that you can say, hey, I need some professional advice. Look, I'm struggling with this. You know, that is important as you continue to evolve in the stages of your life, because I have people now who, if I'm ever stuck in a rut, I'm having issues with business, trying to close a deal, I'm having issues with legal, if I'm having issues with logistics, I have people now that I can call. But it all started with me just stepping out on that limb and saying, you know what? I'm not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid of falling. I've been through enough in my life. You know what? What's one more challenge? So I just stood up to it, and I continue to stay confident in who I am, because me being who I am has still gotten me to the place where it may not, you know, things could have went any way for me, but I'm just fortunate that I kept my faith in my family as a priority. And it's allowed me to stay confident in doing things like a video resume and having somebody watch me with a GoPro. And that small bit of creativity has set up, you know, my career now to date.
Whew, there is so much goodness in there. Trey, that is an incredible story, and the creativity with which you put yourself out there in a new form, in a new fashion, I think is really what separates you, not only in your candidacy, but you as a person. So I love to hear how you talk about how you stay true to yourself, and how relationships matter. And I think Commissioner Bowlsby, hearing from you about how perspiration is really what drives all of the excellent outcomes that you've seen through your career as well. So this next question is for both of you guys. Both of you were incredibly accomplished college athletes. And we have a ton of high school athletes who are listening to this call either right now or on recording. The question that I want to make sure that we connect for them is, what transferable skills did you take that you learned and earned through your time in sports and that you now apply in your work? And Commissioner Bowlsby, I'll ask you to kick things off for us here.
Oh, I think it's a rare day that goes by that I don't employ something that I learned during my sports career. And most of it was when I was a competitive athlete. I've been around great coaches. I've been around great players. I've been a part of championships, and it's not those things that you remember all that much unless there's also a lesson tied to it. I go back to things that my high school wrestling coach told me that serves me very well. He used to have a saying, now don't go out there and take a back seat to this guy. And, that meant, don't willingly open the back door and get in. You should ride shotgun, and you should drive. And, there are always things in our lives that are daunting to us that just cause you to say, I don't know if I can do that. And, you think back and say, don't take a back seat to it. You take it on head on. And as Trey said, we've all fallen down a lot. And the only thing wrong with falling down is not getting back up. And so you have to go about it in ways that don't keep you from taking risks. Taking risks and pushing yourself is how you move forward and how you excel. And so I even at my age and my point in my career, I try and learn things new all the time. I try and do things differently. I try and think about today's problems in light of yesterday's solutions and trying to apply new solutions to them. And I think that's how you stay current. I think that's how you challenge yourself. I think you do your best things when you get out of your comfort zone, when you challenge your traditional thinking. What young people will do from the time they're high school athletes until the time they're married and having children and going about their lives doing whatever they may do. This is as formative a time in your life as you're ever going to have. And there are lessons that I learned in grade school and junior high and high school that I still apply today. And in a purely sports environment, I don't think there's anything that that prepares you for life better than going out some night and getting your butt kicked in your chosen sport and having to get up the next morning and go do a training run or go do the stretching that you need to do, or you get up and 10 hours before you were getting your butt kicked on the wrestling mat, and you got to get up and get a run the next morning because that's what it takes. And so it's that resiliency, I think, that is sort of built in, that does what Trey said. It causes you to have confidence in your ability to recover from defeat. And it's a rare athlete that doesn't get defeated, and it's a rare person that doesn't have setbacks in their life. And I think athletics and team sports and individual sports both, I think, are tremendous at preparing you to deal with adversity in your life and to apply resiliency in ways that there are very few other things that prepare you quite the same.
Incredible words, sir. And Trey, same question for you. And after you finish up, I just have one other quick question for you two wonderful gentlemen before we turn it back over to the audience for Q&A. So hope everyone is getting their questions in the chat. Trey, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was two things. Bob made a really good point, and I had the privilege to go back to Duncanville last week, where I spoke to our track and field athletes before they actually headed off for regionals, and it brought me to a reality. And he makes a good point, because we live in a society now where everything moves a mile a minute. Every piece of information is transferable by a text message. You can get it at the speed of light. And so the one thing that I want you guys to understand is, while you're trying to chase your dreams of getting a scholarship, don't forget to live in the moment. Sincerely enjoy the moments that you live in, because I'll tell you, the guys who I fought with, who I cried with, who I competed with, who I laughed with, we are still tight and close till this day, because we understood the importance of enjoying and embracing the moment. You live in life, and you don't want life to pass you by, because time is going to move. I'm pretty sure we have some juniors and seniors on this call who are thinking about, okay, because it goes to my next point. I didn't have any offers, but we were still top in the nation in running the mile relay. The year before that, in 2011, we got dead last at state. We made it all the way to UT, the big show, my junior year, and got smoked. South Lake Carroll ran 3:11. It was so you don't want to sound like no hater. You'd be like, man, he did great. But now you're looking at your guy, you're like, man, we just got dead last. But I remember that following year, coming into our senior year, first day of school, we had 6 a.m. workout. We are up in the turf room doing abs, because from that moment on, I knew what getting last place in one of the biggest stages in high school UIL sports felt like. And I said, you know what? Nah, it's not happening again. So I put our group, the whole team, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into competing. And so to be able to still hoist one of these jokers from going from dead last to first within 1 year is just showing true adversity. And bet on yourself. You have to be confident in yourself. And so I just say, cherish the moment and never be afraid of adversity, because it's going to make you stronger once you run through it.
Woo! After listening to you two fine folks, I'm ready to run through a wall. I don't know about anybody else listening. And with that, our Q&A has at least come to a close from the moderated side. So want to make sure that we open it up for questions from the audience. And I am going to be waiting from my counterpart, Rebecca, here, as she helps feed me some of these questions. I'm going to start off with Michael Boone, who says to Mr. Bowlsby, from the view of the business of athletics, can you talk about why men's soccer is not part of the Big 12? What interest has been shown, and what are the barriers?
Frankly, it's a little bit embarrassing to me that we don't have men's soccer. We have very good women's soccer, and we only have one institution that has men's soccer. That's West Virginia. And soccer is very good, particularly in Texas. It's the fastest growing sport among high school sports. And I would very much like to see us have soccer in the Big 12. The impediment to that is Title IX in a lot of ways, because there are both at the high school level and at the collegiate level, there are laws that govern equal opportunities for males and for females. And so that isn't to say that soccer takes the short shrift on this, but other sports got started more sooner than men's soccer did. And it would be very difficult for most of our schools to add soccer, because in order to add those 20 or 25 male opportunities, you would probably have to offer at least as many female or maybe even twice as many, because many of the programs are marginally out of compliance right now. And so from a numerical standpoint, from a Title IX compliance standpoint, it's very difficult to add men's sports. We've added a number of women's sports in our conference and are proud of having done that. But it's difficult to add men's sports in today's environment. It's particularly difficult for schools that have a football program, because the number of male participants that puts into the school system.
As someone who played tennis hyper competitively through high school and got recruited, but only wanted to attend one particular university in the Big 12, I can feel for this young man in asking that question. But I think that you give an incredible answer, Commissioner Bowlsby. And we're living in an age where equity and equality really matter more than ever before. And so I love to hear the way that you frame that.
Yeah, well, soccer's kind of caught up in it. It's really unfortunate, because we ought to have soccer in our conference, and we would get good at it in a hurry.
True, we would. So this next question, I'm going to point it towards Trey. Trey, let us know what your thoughts are here. This comes from Ty Woodson, who asks, I understand that you need to take opportunities and some steps are unknown, but how do you know which opportunities to take and when to take them in your career?
Well, for me, it's always been about paying attention. So I'm fortunate enough to I've been blessed to just kind of think about things more analytically sometimes. So sometimes that allows me to look at the probable cause. So if you're in a particular position in your life where you're saying, okay, I'm in this field and this is where my mindset wants to go, then that means you need to be knowing what's happening in that field consistently. And that's if for all the athletes, that's just about becoming a student of the game. Those same transferable skills from middle school to high school to collegiate athletics, the mentality part never changes. You have to become a student of the game that you play. So, it's easy for you to make a more conscious choice once you've done your homework and the variables that lie ahead. So for me, that's where I knew esports was a thing the moment when I was working at Legends Hospitality. And it was one of those situations where I see Jerry Jones is investing in complexity gaming. So I'm sitting here like, complexity gaming? What's complexity gaming? What's this? What's that? And that was where my interest started to peak. And then the rest has been history going forward. And so it just starts with paying attention and being a student of the game.
I love that, especially when it comes to looking for opportunity. So this next question comes from Cruz Martinez. What was a really hard part of your career and how did you get through it? And I'll open that up to either of you. And Commissioner Bowlsby, make sure we tap mute there. I want to make sure.
Yeah, I guess I'll just jump in on this, and I don't mean to jump ahead of you, Trey, but probably the changes in personnel, the decisions to let a coach go and then to put the right replacement in. And when Hayden Fry retired, a good Texan who came north to coach at Iowa, had a great career. He retired in 1990 after the 97 season. And I hired Kirk Ferentz. Most people wanted me to hire Bob Stoops, who was one of our alums. And during the process, he took the job at Oklahoma. Most coaches would take the job at Oklahoma over Iowa. but Kirk Ferentz was 3-19 his first 2 seasons at Iowa. And they were long afternoons. You know, there was just it wasn't evident that we were making progress, although I knew we were. I was out at practice frequently, and I knew about the coaches we had, and I knew what kind of successes we were having in recruiting. And you could start to see it in practice, and then you'd start to see it on the field, but you weren't quite good enough to win. And then you'd be ahead late in the game, and you lose, and then finally you get over the hump, and you don't know why you got over the hump at that particular time, but you did. And then all of a sudden, now 22 years later, Kirk Ferentz is the winningest coach in the history of Iowa football. And he also is the longest serving head coach in the United States. And so, you know, it doesn't make any of that early stuff any easier. It's very difficult, and you have to have some confidence in your ability to evaluate. And then you just have to have a lot of patience. And not, you know, to Trey's point earlier, you know, we live in an instantaneous world right now, and people are not very patient. And it's hard to be patient, and it's especially hard to be patient when you know there's progress made and it's not demonstrating itself in wins and losses. And so I'd say that was, in terms of difficulty, one of the longer and more difficult periods. But generally speaking, personnel changes were just very difficult, because you're telling somebody that's very passionate about what they're doing that they're not doing it well enough, and you're gambling on somebody else coming in that, you know, is unproven in your circumstance. So I would say those have been the most challenging things. That they're certainly the most lonely, because in the end you can only do those yourself.
Well said. And Trey, I want to give you the opportunity to answer, or I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. We actually have a coach who's ready to come on live and ask you a question.
All right, bring them on.
Let's do it. Coach Jones, I know you are ready and waiting in the background, and you're going to be promoted here very shortly. I think I see you up there now. There he is. Coach Jones, it's so good to see you.
Yes, I missed last week from you guys. I apologize for that. Had a death in the family, but we're doing good and taking care of business at home. And so my question is for Trey. Good evening, both of you guys. Bob, I am an athletic director right now and head football coach, so I can appreciate much of what you're doing. And it's certainly different at a high school level. I just got in and walked in and turned on at 7 o'clock from a long, busy day. So, but for Trey, and this is really for both of you guys, Trey and Bob, who influenced you the most in high school and why? You know, who influenced you the most in high school and why? Somebody got you going on your way. You got that great smile and that energy. And Bob, I know that you're on the other side of the season, but at the same time, I see that smile, and I know you've had to have some fire in you somewhere to get where you are. And I aspire for both of you guys, because we have young men doing both. I've got 3 boys in the house, and they're trying to play gaming right now, to playing basketball, to football. So I'm all over the place right now. So that's my question for you guys.
Well, for me, I can't give one person credit, because I was blessed to have many individuals. So I'll just name a few. I started with Coach Anthony, he taught me the definition of hard grit work. He ran at Baylor around that time when Michael Johnson was there. And so his philosophy was, we're going to run until you can't run anymore. So that's where I learned really grit, grind when it came to track and field. And then I would say mentors like Coach Dozier, who taught me the science behind track and field, stride length versus stride frequency. You know, so it was just a lot of credit came there. And then one of my teammates, I would say, was Richard Gary. You know, at that time, Richard Gary was one of the best 400-meter runners in the state, next to Aldridge Bailey, and they both were in my district. So, you know, I always had the underdog mentality. And so I always looked at them as my biggest motivators, because they were in my district and they were where I wanted to be, but the reality was I was already there. I just kind of had to see it in myself. So, that's why I can't just give credit to one person, because I get inspiration easily. And when I see somebody doing something great, I always aspire. I look at it, I marvel at it, I appreciate it. But Kenny, sincerely, I want to just send my condolences to you and your family as well. Sincere condolences.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Bowlsby, if you want to answer Coach Jones' question too, he saw that wry little smile. He's got to know.
Yeah, thanks for the questions, Coach. I don't know if I should give you congratulations or condolences for being both the athletic director and the football coach, but I tell you, my undergraduate degree was in education. I had visions of being a teacher and a wrestling coach, and so I admire greatly what you do, and you make a huge difference for lots and lots of kids, and I admire that and I appreciate it. I'd also like to express my condolences and thanks for taking the time to be on tonight. For me, it is without question my high school wrestling coach. His name was Bob Siddons. He was also the athletic director at the school while I was there. During the time right before I came into West High School and the 2 years after I was gone, our school had 88 dual meet wins in a row and 4 state championships. And so it's a culture that's easy to get excited about. But he was just, we had as much as he had a profound impact on me in high school, because he believed in me. I had a very difficult time making the lineup. There were a lot of state champions around me, and I wasn't one of them. And I had a tough time finding a spot in the lineup, but he believed in me. And that you remember when that first happened to you in your life. Somebody said, you know what, you can do something you don't think you can do. And so we had a lifelong relationship. He just died a year and a half ago at age 93. And his birthday is April 29th, and I have talked to him on his birthday every day since I got out of high school until he died on his birthday. And so we had a special relationship, and I was a high school official early in my career, and he was a great high school and college official. And so it was just a very impactful and, more than anything, long-lasting relationship.
Coach Jones, condolences from all of us here at Trey Athletes, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. And always, we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, team, last question before we turn it back over to LaJoy and team. I think that it is fascinating to see how quickly both of your industries have grown, right? College sports, Commissioner Bowlsby, has grown from roughly $4 billion a year in 2003 to almost $19 billion in total athletic department revenues in 2019. Obviously hit a little bit of a bump here in 2020 with COVID. But Trey, esports is growing at anywhere between 15 and 20% per year. And we're going to surpass over $1 billion in total ad revenue this year as well, which is incredible to think about. So multi-billion-dollar industry happening there as well. Both of those industries are driven by TV rights. Both of them are driven by, engagement from fans and, crazy fanatics like myself, as well as others. But it's also going to be incredibly difficult to break into these industries, for any of our high school athletes listening. So one of the things that we've heard in different forms that would love to hear from both of you guys before we close out, what one piece of advice would you give to high school athletes right now who want to work in the sports industry here in the next 5 to 6 years so that they can start to begin preparing themselves for what's to come?
Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I think with that one, based on like how I've seen esports grow just in the 3 years that I've been involved in it, the one thing that I would tell you guys is whatever you see, take it serious. We're in a system now where everybody wants to become their own entrepreneurs. but everybody can't be the entrepreneur, you know? And so it's one of those situations where I say, just take things serious. Don't take things as lightly as you think, because I'm learning quickly. Time will pass you by if you're not prepared, if you're not thinking about the next steps. And I think for me, that was one thing that's blessed me to continue to at least figure out how to face adversity, is because I take these things serious. This is because that's behind that seriousness for me, it's passion. And that's one thing that I've never lost. My passion has never left me. I have been this same passionate guy for as long as I can remember. You can ask anybody about me and they'll tell you, Trey brings this energy day in and day out. But that same passion, when you think about how it transitions in your sports life, in your home life, in your career, in your schoolwork, it's all transferable. So it's not a game. Take it serious, but sincerely enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I agree with all that wholeheartedly. And I think something that Trey said earlier is exactly right. The networking components of this business are substantial. And there are a lot of people chasing not very many opportunities. And so because of that, one of the things that you really need to do is you need to get experience. You need to go volunteers when the community has something going on, or when Trey needs some extra bodies for a special gaming event that he's doing, or when we do a championship and need some extra people to do things. That's what separates aspiring young people in the business. If you've got the right person on your resume, it'll open a lot of doors for you. It'll start to give you that opportunity to have the guy to call on logistics, and to have the guy to call on legal, and to have the guy to call on something to do with programming. And building that network is incredibly important. And it's not all about your contacts, and it's not about how many people you're involved with LinkedIn. Those are tools that you can use, but it's not the sum and substance of it. You have to have legitimate relationships, and those relationships come from somebody having a vantage point of the kind of work you do. And so if you get a chance to volunteer for community of activities, or you get a chance to volunteer when we've got an NCAA championship in town, or when there's some other, whether it's, maybe you go out and volunteer at the NASCAR track, anything you can do to get some names on your resume are a lot more important than what dollars you might make from doing it, even if you don't get paid at all. And so I think Trey is exactly right. Networking is important. Getting the proper education is important. I mentioned that I came up as an educator, but there are lots of great sports management programs. Business and management is another great way to go. I think if I had to do a master's degree over again, I would probably try and go to law school. Higher ed administration, there's a lot of pathways there. I couldn't tell you one specific pathway, but I can tell you the more experiences you have on your resume leads to the more contacts you have, and that will lead you to more opportunities.
Diversity in experience, diversity in network, maintain that passion, that fire, that hunger, and like Trey said, take things seriously, because this is your career. So with that, our Q&A with Commissioner Bowlsby and Trey has now come to a close. Commissioner Bowlsby and Trey, through your incredible experiences and stories, thank you so much for talking with us tonight about the business of sports as a part of Trey Season 3. And in advance of passing it back to LaJoy, 2 quick notes for our audience. Number 1, we're going to launch a quick poll now, so please complete this before you leave. And number 2, LaJoy has just a few reminders in advance of finalizing our event, so please stick around. Finally, on behalf of every single one of our Trey athletes, families, coaches, thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner Bowlsby and Trey. You're both truly an inspiration. Thank you. Take us home, LaJoy.
Thank you again. I am feeling so inspired and pumped by everything that I learned and heard from the conversations tonight. And I hope that everyone in our audience feels the same way. Just a few reminders. As I promised, I'll be back with some for you all. For our coaches who are on tonight, who are part of Trey Season 3, make sure you host your debrief session as soon as possible. And after those debrief sessions, make sure you're also completing those feedback surveys. For any of your athletes who were not able to attend live, I am so happy to share that we'll be posting this chat live on our YouTube channel. We'll be posting information about that on our social media so that you can check that out in case you want to share it far and wide. And we encourage everyone to post about the Fireside chat and make sure you tag us at Trey Athletes on social media. We'll send a reminder in the chat right now in case you need that. And once again, I want to say thank you to Commissioner Bowlsby and to Trey for joining us for your invaluable time tonight. And with that, to athletes everywhere, good night.